Bob from Oregon's Constant Gardener. Welcome to the OCGFAM show to you, my YouTube buddies. Weird show today. A little weird. Let me tell you what I got going on. We got a lot of science coming up here. We got Randy Ritchie from Malibu Compost, a very spiritual guy, but also talking about the science of compost. He's going to be here on, the 6th, coming up in a couple days here. And then on the 20th, Jeff Lowenfels, Dr. Mike Amaranthus. Jeff Lowenfels, the guy that takes the science and explains it. Dr. Mike Amaranthus, the guy that makes the science, finds the science. Serious scientific type guys. Now, today, I was over at Jake's a couple days ago, Jake Kraken, and Jake is, I guess, a scientific guy. He's smart. He knows that stuff. But Jake gardens in a more, I wouldn't so much say a spiritual way as a, I really don't know how to explain it, but he comes from the heart. He just kind of feels his way through it. And I thought it was kind of interesting. I was over there because we were doing a little thing about how to reuse buckets. You know, here's one. Hold on a second. You got all these buckets. How the heck do you reuse them? What do you do with them? So we were doing a little segment about that. But we ended up talking a little more about making soil, and then we just had a little conversation after. Had a little coffee, had a little conversation, and I thought it was interesting. I don't know if you'll find it interesting. We'll be back into the nectar and this kind of stuff tomorrow and the next day, moving on up. But for today, I thought it'd be kind of fun, a little thoughtful kind of conversation. So watch this video. I'll talk to you after. Hey there, Bob from Oregon's Constant Gardener. We're here with Jake Kraken.
Hi.
Jake.
Hi, Bob.
Here's what I want to talk to you about.
Yeah.
Buckets. I got a lot of buckets. I got them on the truck. I'm going to see what we can do with them. But these are the extra buckets, like your nectar for the gods or your bokashi or whatever. You got all these buckets from growing your garden, and you're like, holy moly, what do I do with these gosh darn buckets? I'm trying not to not to cuss.
There's a lot of buckets. We need something to take the nutrient around, and
you got to put it in something to get it moving around. Yeah.
Then there's, we create waste as our society. So how do we reuse those things?
Upcycling.
Upcycling.
Did I just invent that word? No?
I don't think so.
I'm not part of the whole community. I maliciously just kind of like sit home and drink. So I don't know about these words.
I think that still means you're part of the community. You're not alone, Bob.
That's funny. All right. So what did you do with these particular buckets here?
These buckets got turned into worm buckets.
Worm buckets?
Yeah.
So you're using to cultivate worms?
Yeah, I was learning about composting, which, I don't turn my compost. It's I just kind of pile my stuff on there, and a year later you got something. There's all kinds of scrap from the kitchen. I had been learning about bokashi, breaking stuff down where it's not going to make a lot of smell. So actually, how do you keep this in the house or somewhere where there might be an open window in summer and not be all stinky?
Gotcha.
Who wants to travel all the way somewhere when you're cutting up the vegetables? You want to go out to the garden and do it. The garbage is right there. It's like easy to put something in a bucket. So
you put the buckets, then you put bokashi in there. So you don't follow this whole composting with the temperatures and the rolling and everything.
No,
you're just more of a natural type.
Well,
throw it in there, throw some bokashi.
That was a start.
Yeah.
So the thing is, I don't think you really want to do bokashi and worms. Maybe you start it with bokashi.
Yeah. I get what you're saying.
Get it going.
Sure. Okay.
And then maybe add your worms. But I have, and actually I don't know about that so well, but I've heated things up too much with bokashi before and certain kinds of things, and it gets really hot, and that may kill the worms.
It's a problem for the worms, not so much for you.
Yeah.
More so for the worms, than you.
Yeah. But I'm not so sure about all of that and what I said. Just it's what I've thought in my head. So these particularly right here were just composting materials. I think I put some soil, a little bit of soil in the bottom, and put in some of those red wigglers and some regular, just the deep running red earthworms. And I put some leaf material on top, and I let them sit, and I added a few times, and then the idea about doing this video came on. I was like, I haven't checked on my buckets in all this time.
Yeah.
And I went out, and they're gorgeous.
Okay.
This was the first thing. Somebody else told me about it, and I found the design online, and I think it's a brilliant idea.
Yeah. So what is it? Let's
all right.
Looks like you got some holes drilled in there.
This one these were experimental. I put small holes in, I put big holes in. I had some mesh left over from something.
Okay.
And I thought
like a
that this would
window
help
screen
to
or
keep
something.
stuff out, right? If I put the holes in
Right,
so that
yeah.
stuff could breathe.
Keep the
but
big
really,
stuff out.
Yeah, big stuff out. But what I found is that the little fruit flies and all that stuff
Okay,
still
sure,
got through the
yeah,
mesh, and it really didn't matter. And it was outside, and it didn't really matter anyway. And so what I have in here, and actually there's well, I guess I put some weeds in or something. Some seed got in here. But this entire thing is broken down, is gorgeous. You know, I haven't dug into these yet, but it is 100% broken down, and it's beautiful. There's things in our neighborhoods in Eugene which I did not really realize, but there's a lot of rats that happen in compost piles and stuff like that around town, and they ended up getting in my grill, and I haven't used my grill for a while. And this kind of composting, rats can't get in here. They don't have hands like we do. So it's been really nice for that. It's kind of a controlled way of doing a worm bin that's not just big and open. You know, you don't have to build anything out of wood. It's like, what am I going to go build all this stuff and do these things? And I was going to, and I was like, I got buckets. I got tons and tons of buckets. Another thing that I've been thinking about is making actual compost, not for worms, but you know, people do their composting and they get it hot and they're flipping it and doing all this stuff. Well, in the black buckets in the sun, that's pretty hot. It's gonna get really hot. You can take it, if you don't fill it all the way, you can shake it. So instead of having a compost and you're digging and doing all this stuff, you have black bucket and you shake it up and you make your compost in there somehow. Now, I haven't tried that yet, but it's one of my thoughts on another thing to do for composting. This is for making worms. So I have a lot of garden. My whole 1/5 of an acre is garden. It's berries, it's fruit, it's vegetables, the whole thing. Soil building is really important, as well as adding nutrients. And so this is a way to build soil without making a mess, keeping it clean, without getting rats, and putting it back into these gardens. You know, it's wonderful. And worms. Love worms. Hey. All right.
Hey.
So, first thing we're gonna do is take a bucket.
Yeah.
It is dirty. I'm gonna flip it over.
That's good stuff there.
It is.
There's a worm there.
Worm bucket.
Do you do that? You find a worm, you put him in a pot?
Well, I got mulch all over. I could have tossed it, whatever.
Well, I'm saying those, but you're farming worms, ranching worms, I guess you'd say.
Worm rancher.
Yep.
So the first thing in the bottom, I'm trying to figure out what to do. You know, holes have got to go in.
Sure.
And worms come out. But
Like the song.
different kind of worms.
Do they play pinochle though? That's what I don't get.
No, hopefully not.
It's a crazy game.
So, you know, I go through and I put a bunch of holes in here. You can see.
Small holes.
Small holes. Yeah, there's got to be holes. Worms are going to be able to come out, but you know what? They're going to stay inside there because it's awesome.
Yeah.
And they came out with some liquid sometimes. But
and this is how you can make a worm tea kind of situation too, right?
yeah, so I would take this, and once you got it, and you put it on top of another bucket. Put another bucket under here. Pour.
Oh, okay. Okay. Do you
Dechlorinated
put like a
water.
spacer in there or something to?
It just doesn't go all the way down. You know, bucket stack, and there's a little bit of room,
okay.
right?
I got you.
So, you know, I mean, you can, depending on how much tea you want, you could also put something like a spigot in there.
If you want to get really high tech about it.
Yeah.
But you're just punching a bunch of holes. You don't got a number in mind. You don't got a pattern in mind. You just put a bunch of holes in the bottom.
Yeah.
Okay.
I apologize. I have an alarm going off. It happens all day. There we go. So. Yeah, there we go.
Not too high tech.
Now, something too. The plastic coming off of this, it's good to do this in an area where, you know, we'll just put it right on here.
So we're not going to throw that on the ground here. We're going to save those little things and throw them away.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now, do you ever put any holes on the side or mostly just the bottom?
I have only done it on the bottom. I have not done it on the sides.
Not practical for this application.
I hadn't thought about it. But you're correct.
Okay.
For wanting to put a
what
bucket
we're doing is we're
underneath
trying to
and
get
capture
something going
things
through.
In one direction.
Yeah, I got you.
So what I've noticed here is that these other lids from the Bokashi buckets did not have these spigots on here. So you need to keep it moist. First of all, you need it to be able to breathe enough. which I don't really know how much that is, but I have not, one of these has all these holes. I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 holes in that one that are maybe 7/8. Yeah, those are of a 7/8
exactly
size.
7/8. That's what it says on there.
Exactly 7/8.
Yeah.
But the thing is that I was also using mesh on these to try and keep bugs out. But note on here, there's all these tiny little holes. So maybe if I just did the same thing in the top, what I find with this is then when you water it, I don't want tons of water to go through. I'm not looking for tea a lot. Sometimes you're just looking to keep it moist because you don't want it to dry out.
Yeah.
Although it is enclosed and will hold moisture well.
But it still needs moisture added because you got moisture coming out the bottom. Probably moisture coming in from the bottom too because it's sitting on the. I got you.
It needs to be oxygenated.
Let me ask you that. Are you going to set this on the ground, like on the dirt, or are you going to set it on a shelf, or what are you doing
So
there?
I just had mine on the ground. I actually had mine around at the base of I have jujube date trees, jujube trees, and that are only a few years old or small. And I put these at the base of that so that any liquid that went in was going right down into my tree.
That's what I'm thinking.
It's another way of, put one around all your trees or all your plants. I mean, then there's buckets everywhere.
Oh my goodness. Yeah, it's not aesthetically pleasing, but
you can also hide them.
Yeah.
Put a bush over. I don't know.
You can start decorating them maybe.
Exactly.
Like those where they have like the little the farmer lady like this that they make out of the skirt. You see those in the garden. Garden decorating.
It's got a gorgeous butt, by the way.
Why, thank you. All right, so what are you doing now?
So,
you're rethinking these big holes and you're thinking small holes.
Yeah, and you know what? I'm actually going to use the same drill that I used on the bottom.
Okay.
Because the nice thing is that it did not make a mess, and it just was nice to get rid of right there. And more, it's just that we need oxygenation and a way for water to get in.
You know what I like about you, Jake? Not just that you're wildly charismatic
Thank you,
and
Bob.
a handsome man. I like that when you do these things, when we talk about this stuff, you are still figuring it out and open to that you might be wrong or right, and you're figuring stuff out. Because a lot of people are like, well, this is the way you need to do it with this, but you're like, no, let's figure this out. I love that about you, Jake.
Thank you, Bob. You bring that out in me.
Well, that's nice to hear.
There are many ways to go about many things. There's all kinds of people around.
Yeah.
And I will often play devil's advocate. So now that you've said what you've said,
you'll just go against that just for the fun of it to see what happens.
So really trying to get this dispersed well and all around. I don't know that it matters how many holes there are. It's just that I want to be able to get liquids to go in everywhere.
You want it to feel right.
Yeah, gotta breathe.
Yeah.
So, it's possible that this may not breathe enough, but I mean, if you're checking it, you're coming out, looking at it, seeing if there's progress.
You may punch some more holes in it at some point.
Yeah.
Or maybe make these big holes and think, that didn't work with the small holes.
Exactly. I mean, we're versatile. We get to do whatever we want to a certain degree.
Yeah.
You just got to be able to have a thought and then have your body do it.
So, but I guess would you probably say more holes than the top than in the bottom?
Again, I'd say that's personal.
I got you.
That's just,
Well, I didn't mean to pry.
That may be true. You don't want water. The thing is, don't dump a crap load of water in here and have it sitting in there killing worms because it can't drain out fast enough.
Absolutely.
So,
that makes sense. Perfect sense. Yeah.
Things to think about with that while you're doing stuff. Again, I'm going to take the plastic, put it on this lid.
To dispose of at a later date.
All right, so
yeah,
here's my lid with all the holes. There's the bottom of the bucket with all the holes.
Now the $64,000 question. What do you put in there?
Oh, yeah, we can just put this down on the ground and the worms will just, it's like a worm home. They'll crawl in and start building.
Well, you got to put some. You're having a go at me.
All right, so what do we do in here? I put a little bit of dirt in the bottom because I like dirt. Worms like dirt. It's good stuff, I think.
So like potting soil from one of your used
not
pots
potting
or something?
soil.
No?
I actually like to get like soil out of the ground.
Oh yeah.
Or a garden soil or something like that that's a little thicker, so it's not just gonna like fall through.
I understand.
It's kind of already a base for what the creatures will live in. I know we can do things like sawdust and different stuff they like to use, but leaf material. They love leaves, right?
I got you. Sure.
From a leaf pile, but
so a little dirt to get the going, a lot of leaves to give them something to to work with.
Yeah, some leaves, and then
Uh-huh.
you can start putting like banana peels and other things in here. Things you don't want to load it too much, right? Because you
No,
put a whole
right,
bunch
right,
of stuff
okay.
in a bucket
It's
this
overwhelming.
size.
Yeah.
That's the thing about maybe having a few different things.
You need some substrate to. You can't. It's a small space. You can't have a ton of like holy moly strong like food type things. You need some stuff for it to.
Well, yeah, but I mean, if you slam tons and tons of produce on something,
Right. Uh-huh.
you know, it takes time to break down. There's
Right,
the creatures
right,
that are
okay.
underneath. They
Yeah,
got to work
yeah,
their way
yeah.
through. So giving them a certain amount of food, not giving them huge amounts of food and piling it on. So that's the thing about
Yeah,
having
okay.
depending on how, you know, it's a bucket. It's 5-6 gallons, whatever this is.
Uh-huh.
And so you just put a little bit of stuff in, you give them their base, you put some worms in there,
Uh-huh.
you start putting stuff in. So
Okay.
what I did is I took, when I would put some things like banana peels, whatever, into
Uh-huh.
it, and then I'd put a little bit of leaf on there.
Okay.
And then it sort of just made layers, and they
Uh-huh.
would work their way through. Being that it's only so big, and a compost in your yard could be however big, and you just
Yeah.
start tossing stuff out
Uh-huh.
there, depending on how many buckets you have is how much you can put in
I
and
got
start
you.
working
It's
with.
somewhat limited, but it's a convenient way to do it.
It's a really convenient way to do it.
Nice.
It's accessible, it's easy. Yeah, I really
Okay.
like it. And the soil inside, what they made was gorgeous. The worms did a beautiful job.
As they do.
As they do.
Nice.
So let nature be nature. Where's my coffee?
Some good coffee.
My ex-wife works at Full City Palace Bakery.
Mm-hmm.
She gave me this coffee.
So there must be somewhat of an amicable split then.
Oh yeah. Oh, it was rough for a while,
Yeah.
but we're really good friends.
I know how that can be.
You know, we can't live together and do a bunch of the things together,
Mhm,
but she is. I love her. And she is the kid's mom, and she's amazing at being a mom and wonderful, wonderful friend. And it's very nice to be at that spot and be able to appreciate each other. And you know, living together isn't for everybody. Or you know, can't. Things don't always work out the same. And, you know, how many times have you been married? So you know,
I do.
and the thing is, you be in these places and you still got to be happy. You know, it's life can take you down if you let it,
It sure can.
and we ain't going down.
No,
Not like that.
no, not like that.
So what do we got going on? We
Well, we need
What?
to make those buckets.
we do need to make those buckets. You remember eating hot peppers?
Yes. Yes, I do,
Yeah.
Jake. I remember when you fed me hot peppers and nearly killed me.
John Ford.
Oh,
kicking your
I
ass with
remember that
peppers.
as well, yeah.
I think
uh-huh.
his was a little bit hotter than mine.
Yeah, I only had a little piece of that one, though.
So
Then there was the chicken wings.
okay, yeah. Those
Yeah.
are good.
Tell me about the peppers.
This is from John Ford. This is a seed from John Ford, an Ufra biber, which to tell you the
Say an
truth-
Ufer Biber.
Ufra biber. Or at least that's how I say it.
It's good enough for me.
You know, it might be Urfa biber.
It
I don't
doesn't
know.
matter.
And it's a gorgeous plant.
Mhm.
I can't remember if it's hot or sweet or what, but it is one of the most beautiful plants that I have out of all the plants I have. This is
Yeah.
the Carolina Reaper. This is from my yard. This
Famous
is
Carolina
the
Reaper.
Carolina Reaper, and this was a really good year that these seeds came from. I think 3 years ago. Deadly.
Yeah, oh, he'll mess you up.
Oh yeah. And then last year.
Formidable plant.
Oh yeah. Last year I had so there was a pepper guy that came in and dropped off a flat of interesting peppers and rare peppers
Just
in
random
OCG.
stuff. They were actually labeled or anything?
Yeah,
or
they were
just-
labeled and
Uh-huh.
everything, or most of them were labeled, and so I grew a bunch out. I took some and I gave some back to
Mhm.
Ryan and grew them out and I collected the seeds. And Glenn's Purple Balls I had no idea, you know, when I got the plant,
Sure.
but it is actually purple. A lot of it's purple. The peppers are small, but not too small. They're pretty small, but they're gorgeous. Yeah, about that big.
Okay.
They're gorgeous. They're purple until
Plum
they
sized.
turn red. No, smaller than plums.
Smaller plum, yeah.
Yeah,
Apricot?
they're smaller. Smaller than apricot.
Bigger than a cherry, smaller than apricot.
About a cherry.
About a cherry, so
About a
they're
cherry.
pretty small.
They're pretty small. They're
Okay.
smaller though. I had
All right.
smaller last year.
Uh-huh.
Things that are straight out of the jungle, supposedly. People are getting peppers out of the wild and collecting the seeds and getting them around there. So I had
How do you know they're not poison? You figure it out. Hard way.
I've not had a pepper that poisoned me yet.
Are there poison peppers? More berries than peppers. We're digressing. Purple balls.
So Glenn's purple balls, and they turn red, but these are fantastic flavor. The heat is really good. It's not deadly like a Reaper. They're wonderful, and huge amount of production and a large plant, and it's really pretty. I mean, that's one of the things that's just beautiful. Then padrones. So padrone peppers, these things are something that you pick, and you pick them fresh when they're green. And you flash fry them. Well, you can fry them for a longer time, but you flash fry them in olive oil, sear them on both sides, get it to where the skin, I really like it to where the skin has, like puffed up and blistered.
Yeah,
it's
I
darkened,
sure.
but the flesh is not soft.
Yeah.
And so in olive oil, and then you salt them, or you salt and pepper them, or you put on other pepper powder, something like that.
Some kosher salt, little big chunky stuff.
Big chunky stuff, and whatever salt you got. But
sea salt.
Padrones are fantastic.
Whatever salt, yeah.
They are one of my favorite things. I did not know about them until about 3 years ago, and now I grow a lot of them every year.
You ever put some cheese in there, or you just do them just straight up, just the pepper?
Amy has put cheese. I don't know if we did it in padrones, but she has stuffed a bunch of the peppers. I think last year I had like 55 pepper plants and about 30 varieties, or 35 varieties.
Peppers for dinner, peppers for lunch, peppers every day.
Yeah, we got sick of peppers. But there's a lot of ways, you know, when you have that many of something, you got to figure out what to do. And everybody likes poppers, but we didn't want to deep fry it, so she baked them.
Oh,
and then you get some of that cheese that comes out and gets crispy on the pan.
I like that.
Yeah,
it's like you get the cacio e pepe and they make it that little cheese bowl.
Yeah.
Oh, it's crunchy.
Really
delicious.
Good. Yeah.
Delicious. Very cool.
Yeah. I'm excited for this year's peppers. I have about 150 pepper starts. I've got a bunch of different ones from John Ford. I've got a bunch from my own, from the seeds I grew last year, or the plants I grew last year. It's a really good year. I started my vegetables maybe too early, but I have them all inside under lights. And I just got the greenhouse plastic up yesterday so that I can start hardening stuff off and put it up, because I can't fit it underneath the lights anymore. I got some 5-inch tall peppers, and I got squash and cucumbers, and you know, they're all getting pretty big.
Well, you're going to be ahead of the game. It'll be okay.
I hope so. I want this to be my year.
Well, you heat that thing up in there in the greenhouse if you have to. You do what you have to do.
Yeah, I don't. No more greenhouse heating. They should be fine. They need to handle these temperatures, but they need to get hardened off. I have never had a greenhouse before, and so my peppers, a lot of the hot peppers, I only get some early ones, and then they stop ripening real well because it's not hot enough. So
I gotcha.
Early ripening hot peppers and sweet peppers have been wonderful. The Reapers also actually came in early for me. But this year, there are a bunch of varieties that I got one ripe pepper off of last year. But their flavor, I found some of my favorite peppers ever. And they have a sweetness. They were apple-style peppers, and one was green and one was yellow, and the sweetness was fantastic and really came out, as well as the heat. And they weren't deadly. It's you can only eat so much Reaper.
Oh yeah, no, it's a amusement park pepper.
Yeah.
It's not an everyday pepper.
Yeah.
There's so much variety and taste and flavor and to peppers that it can be an everyday thing, but the heat is just a fun once in a while thing, at least to me.
Well, so I took 13 to 15 kinds of varieties of peppers and made mixes of them last year. And I have a red hot and a green hot.
Well, what do you mean by mix? You bred them, or like you mix them up in the?
So we took the peppers and we dehydrated them.
Oh,
and powdered them.
Oh, so it's a pepper, I guess you'd call it.
Pepper powder. That's just in the flavor. So because of how many different peppers in there's some that are really hot, and some that have a lot of width of just depth of flavors in a variety of manners. And so this, if you put too much of this stuff on, and we use it every day often.
But there's a complexity to it, you're saying?
There's a complexity to it.
I love that.
Actually, I've noticed, so I've been using nectar for 10 years in the yard, and I just started using the full-on and SLF and cultured and last year, and so I've had amazing peppers for the 5 years that I've been growing them, and tomatoes and everything, because the nectar really improved my game and the flavor profiles. But last year, using the full-on especially, brought out these wide ranges of flavors. And so
Really?
what we've noticed is over the last 5 years of growing peppers, as I've brought 4 to 5 different varieties to friends, is that you're burning. You take one, you're burning, you don't think you can handle another. And at first we didn't notice a ton of, you eat the first one, you're not thinking flavor, you're thinking, Jesus, the heat. So you move on to another pepper that's burning the crap out of you, and you're all of a sudden like, oh my gosh, but there's flavor too. So we would go through 4 or 5 of them, and have our milk and all that, but the flavor profiles of the peppers when put next to each other really stand out. Even if they're burning you and you're crying and you're sweating, you can still tell.
So I think a lot of people think when you use these inputs that you're looking for more yield. But and I guess there is some of that too, but that you found that you got a complexity and a richening of the flavors from more advanced type gardening techniques.
Yeah.
Using the indoor game outdoors.
Yeah, so I have been growing, I'm 47 and I've been in the garden since I was probably 7 or 10 years old with my mom and growing things. And as I've been an adult from my 20s on and had my own large gardens for all these years, I sucked at first. You're
bad at it to be good at it. That's what I've done with doing the show.
Yeah.
Is you just you muddle through.
You learn.
And that's a more valuable learning experience, I think, than if you were with the guru that would show you exactly how to do it. I think the failure is a big part of it, and the awkwardness is a big part of it.
Yeah. Well, mimicking something you don't get the same kinds of experiences. When you feel out the edges, when you make a mistake, you just found a spot. You need to define your area. So mistakes are actually fantastic. Like you said, it's really important to have failures, and if we didn't call them that, we had them as these fantastic learning experiences, it would shift. It's a personal shift.
I think those mimicking things can be very valuable. What angle to cut a clone at, how to trellis some tomatoes, those kind of techniques. But the actual experience of the garden and the success and the failure, if you want to call it that, but getting something that tastes good to you, those kinds of things, that you can only learn through experience.
Yeah. You got to find out what we like. So going through different kinds of nutrients, going through different soil, building soils, not building soils. Some years are more nutrient based than any soil building. So your inputs exactly come out. And in today's age, we've gone through, there weren't any of these chemical fertilizers and probably even fertilizers in bottles. I mean, obviously years ago.
Yeah.
And at some point, we shifted over to these things, and there's a whole shift in culture. And in my opinion, it was a noble effort. People weren't thinking, oh, we're going to try to feed the world but kill people at the same time. No, it was a wonderful thing, and it's grown into all this other stuff. But then as we learn, again, by making mistakes or learning experiences, what's hurting people, what's helping people, what are the flavors that we like. You can go into a supermarket and get, organic things versus non-organic things. Now, not everything that's non-organic, people, tastes bad.
No.
Right? But there are many things by people's ingredients and how they grow things. Not only the love and the energy they put into it, but the nutrients that go in, how they build their soils, what stuff they're pouring on. The flavors come out, and there's an appreciation. A lot of life is just about finding this median thing. We got to go to work, we got to come home, we go to bed, we feed ourselves. It's just like all this stuff goes on, and there's a place where we don't necessarily have to find these wonderful things, but somewhere in life it's nice to find these wonderful things. What gives it meaning? When we eat something, when you smell something, when you are growing something, at least for me, there is a wonderful thing that happens, and my body probably puts out stuff out of glands,
There's just not time to craft everything, but the thing that means something to you, craft that thing.
Yeah. Well, and with good ingredients, and then that's, gardening is something that you taste. We have to eat to survive. Tasting things, having flavor profiles, thinking about our own life, and it can help widen our view of things. It gives more depth.
Yeah.
We're feeling edges, and so growing peppers, I didn't always eat hot peppers nor grow hot peppers, or even peppers to begin with. Peppers are notoriously difficult, especially in the Northwest, to get thick cell walls, to have them actually to grow good peppers. And by growing other things and learning about calcium and bone meals and more about cell structure of plants, I started putting a lot more calcium, bone meal, fish bone meal, and the nectar products are so much calcium that all of a sudden, when I started treating it that way, I had my first cell walls that were big and thick and full.
So you're talking some dry amendments with the bone meal type things in the soil, as well as the nectar?
I do both. I dry amend typically fish bone meal, regular bone meal, one shot, a little bit of bokashi, some fish meal, some different things. I've learned to put a bunch of those things in earlier so it heats up, because I have killed some plants by putting it all in, putting my plant in. It gets wet, especially fish meal. Heating that up with bokashi, hot.
It goes faster than the cow bone meal will go by far. It's a thinner.
It's not just faster. It's that the fish meal it just gets hot.
Oh, okay.
Right. And another thing is now full on activates things quickly and gets that stuff going, so you can really flush it up.
All right.
So I discovered that by amending really heavily and spraying full on. When I first started using full on, what I didn't realize is that since my pots were so heavily amended, I had what looked like a little bit of like burn. There's just like the plants were like, oh my gosh, too much fertilizer at once for about 2 days. And then my plants did something I've never really seen before. They just went because it just took them a second, because all the nutrient got activated so quickly.
Would you liken this to like when you're doing your indoor starts, then you bring them outside into the sunlight, and they're like, oh my god, but they adjust?
Yeah.
It's just something of that nature. That the full on and these other typically indoor type things you're using, when you use them outdoors, that they're a gas pedal to make all this other stuff go. You can't use them as the full meal for the thing. You still need these dry amendments, but these dry amendments, instead of sitting there doing nothing like they often do while they try to get broken down slowly, that you can break those things down much more fastly and more quickly.
Yeah.
Okay. Huh.
Yeah, so I mean, it's, I still amend my pots the same. I just learned to let them sit a little bit longer, so that I to tell you the truth, I do a spray down with the full on. I put the nutrient now this year. I laid it all on top and I sprayed it down with full on, and then I gave it a couple days, and then I put it in, so it was more activated by the time I get there. And then at the time I put plants in. Actually, this year I'm letting them sit for about a month.
Really?
Yeah, and just to get all that stuff started and going. And so, the other way, immediate amending without. And I didn't use fish meal last year in the same manner because of what I had done the year before. So when I did activate things with the full and immediately, it was not the same as.
So when you were doing this in the past, the fish meal was your early go fast kind of thing, but it was too fast when you started using the full on, and so you pulled back on it, or you wait?
That was the bokashi. That was all in the same year. What I discovered, I just heavily amended too much with fish meal. It just it can get really hot. There's total fish body in there, and when it breaks down really quickly and the heat build up, and the amount that I put in is something too. Like
was this a thing over years? You're like more fish, too much fish?
No, actually, I had just started to learn how to. Actually, I just started using a lot that year. It's just it was a feeling. It was a feeling. I kind of sometimes I go with my gut and I go with the feeling, and something's going on. I'm like, hey.
Well, I would say that you weren't wrong. I guess what I would say
I made a mistake and I found an edge.
Well, yeah. Well, so let me ask you about that then. How did you know you messed up? What did you see in the plant? And how?
I killed a few plants. They just totally burned. I mean, I had some really big plants that I put into pots and they fried.
Okay.
Totally fried. It was way too hot for the root ball.
So a failure in a sense, but also an experiment. You learned
not to do it.
But that you got a reaction.
Yeah.
And that there's something here. I don't know what it is, but there's something going on here.
So what a lot of people know now, and they do this. They amend their soils and wait. You need to let it heat up. I had just not done it to that effect before. I really started loading on. I was using dry amended stuff. I was making my own sort of nutrients by composting in a bucket in a 55-gallon garbage can or one of the honey barrels. I was taking plant material and putting it in there, and with bokashi and with different stuff, and having it ferment and create something that I then put into my compost tea. And so that year I went hardcore into amending, hardcore using stuff from my compost tea. I was fermenting things like bone meals in buckets with bokashi and waiting 3 days at 80 degrees and getting it to start bubbling, and with molasses and stuff, and adding that on, and as well as all the nectar liquid amendments. And so I was pushing the edge, and I had not dry amended that ever to that amount. So what I did is I learned, don't go so far, pull back just a little bit, and give it some time. Because when you slam everything all at once, And it's like putting 15 people into one bathroom.
It's not good.
No.
It's a mess.
And it takes, you got to have a line and take your time.
It's an ugly scene, but it's, it's amazing.
Yeah. And things take things take time to break down. There is a line, there is a process, and I tend to sometimes in my life go at it and try and force that process and make it too quick. And so catalysts, biostimulants, bacteria, all these things, working with them is important.
You find that the going too far is kind of an experimental type thing you do. So maybe you do that on part of your garden, or how does that work? You just go for it.
Well, I like to find the edges. I'm a little bit of an extremist in some areas, and so I sort of look at it often as I find out my center by knowing where my edges are. It's my natural. I've had to learn that in my life and not be mad at myself.
That's a thing there.
I'm an extremist. It seems to screw me up, but if I take a different perspective at it, say, if I learn from it and note that I just found some boundaries, I just found some edges, I had experiences on what to do and not to do, how it makes me feel. Use that knowledge rather, and that's part of growing up, because some people are born with that knack, some people aren't. We all have something. I can grow things, I can bake things, that's naturally what I do, but there's a lot I'm not good at. So
don't worry about that.
Yeah,
Focus on the good.
Yeah.
So, you gonna show me how to make these bucket things?
I am.
Let's go make some bucket things.
Sounds good. I would just real quick like to say
say something.
One of the wonderful things about these buckets is that, so I grow in pots. What I have discovered from the indoor styles of gardening is that take it outside. Drip lines can really harness your water use so that you're not using too much water. Also, weeding is a pain in the butt. Often I've got a yard that, even if it's just 1/5 of an acre, it is all garden.
Sure.
And so what I found is containerized plantings really help me to be able to maintain what's going in, what's coming out, what the plant's needs are. Cloth pots really help with plants being root bound, so I have a lot of like fruit trees that I don't want to get too big, and I keep them.
Okay, right? So that's how you keep them not root bound, to keep them happy in their environment, is by using a cloth pot.
Cloth pot, yeah. But you have a lot of plastic pots too. It's just I'm not getting rid of them. I have like 50 or 60 plastic pots.
Well, let me ask you this. So obviously a tree, something that you're going to keep for years and years and years. But when you're doing seasonal plants, is a plastic pot a more effective way to do that?
Seasonal plants I do those in plastic pots too.
So that's what I'm saying. But so like, for stuff you're going to just grow this year, you might go plastic. For stuff that you're going to, for stuff that's going to be year after year after year, the cloth makes sense so that you don't get this root bound situation, which isn't an issue with the shorter ones. What would you say? I guess probably moving it around and those sorts of things. But what are the advantages of a plastic pot over a cloth pot? Because we know what the advantages of the cloth pot are. What are the advantages of the plastic pot?
I like them because I can move them around easily. I mean, that really is the thing. And also, before I knew about the cloth pots, I had them. So now I have tons of plastic pots. I like the black ones of both because they help collect heat. Peppers want heat. So the plants, not all of them want a lot of heat, but some of them do.
Let me ask you this. Do you think you use less water in a plastic pot? Because it's holding on to it better? Because I've had people say to me that when they're using the cloth pots, they're just pouring the water on because it's coming out all around.
So in the cloth pots, the water does not come around for me when I am inside. When I am pouring into it, I make wells around my pot so that it has soil to move through. So that by the time, sometimes the well isn't there and it just goes out to the edge of the plastic pot. The cloth pots, it doesn't go down; it just goes out the edge and goes out.
Right, that's what I'm saying.
So drip line systems allow you to have it so that you're not going so quickly and that it doesn't get to the outside of the cloth pot.
Sure.
I would do, if I could afford to just revamp all my plastic pots and make them all cloth, I would do that. So
in conjunction with the drip line system.
Correct. Now, also to say, we have a flat roof spot that's fenced with a bunch of flowers and some figs and some different things, and it's kind of Amy's little spot to come up and have not my wild, wonderful yard that's out of control, but in control. So she can go up and pick her flowers. No, we have those the pots on rollers. Soft cloth pots are not the best on rollers. We do have some trees up there. We'll keep them small, and they're in cloth pots. But it's nice to be able to move stuff around.
Absolutely.
There's different seasons for different things. Lilies aren't here all the time. We're going to have a lot of lilies. But to bring this into the buckets as well.
Yeah.
So worm buckets, getting your worm castings, one of the things that you can do once it's all been worked through and eaten is you take a second bucket and put it underneath, and you can take non-chlorinated water, pour it through, and get some worm tea. This, having pots that are where your vegetables or your fruits and various things go. I know you can just pour it onto the soil, you can spray it, I do all that stuff, but it's one of the ways that I build these things and put it back into these containerized gardens, and again get to somewhat control the environment in there. And so it's just, and I can build some soil. One of the things is you can't keep putting stuff into these pots. You can take stuff off, put new stuff in, but what you want to put in should be really nutritious and really full of bacteria and all this life. So having these, nectar buckets full and making your worm bins, it takes time to break down. As I think about having how many kitchen scraps are there, what kind of stuff do we put in this? Oh, that's it for that bucket for that day.
Yeah.
I'm thinking, how many buckets do I have? 10? Do I have 20 buckets? Can they be neatly stacked? Is there a spot where I can stack them? Do they need to have sun? Do they not need to have sun? Those kinds of things. And I have had them both, sun and not sun. I don't know that it matters. But that way you can actually take that stuff, it's set there, I'll come back to it, and I have an easily manipulated bucket that I can take around, spread stuff around, make teas with. It just really simplifies things.
It's a way to break down plant matter and dirt back into something you can use again.
Yeah, and efficiently. And I've, like I said earlier, I've never been the best at composting.
Yeah.
I put my time more into planting and weeding and maintaining that stuff, and so this has been a way for me to compost material
without having to go through this. I got to get to this temperature. I got to get to here. I got to roll it over. I got to get to here. A way to do that in more of a easy fashion.
Correct, and I'm not filling a landfill as much. Now, I don't have my 10 or my 15 or my 20 buckets, and so I have filled plenty of landfill. But it was an experiment last year that really just has shown to work really well.
Yeah.
So I'm about to make a whole bunch more.
Well,
and we're going to make one now.
Let's go do it. Okay, so that was fun. We sure appreciate Jake hanging out. I do. I appreciate Jake hanging out with me and talking about all that stuff. I hope you enjoyed that. That's the show for today. Tomorrow we'll get into some viewer questions, talking more about the contest. If you comment, we're still doing the thing with the Megafoss. So no, it's not this size. It's a little smaller one we're giving away, the 2-ounce version. So comment in the comments. Let's talk about this. But also any comment qualifies you for another winning of the Megafoss. And then tomorrow we'll announce some Megafoss winners and talk to you about how to get that shipped out to you and a bunch of other stuff. But that's the show for today. I love you, and I'll see you tomorrow. For more information about anything on today's show, go to our website, OCGFAM.com. And if you buy anything while you're there, use the code OCGFAMSHOW. It's going to save you 20%, and it's a lot of fun. The OCG Fam Show, it's pretty good. It happens every day. It's the OCG Fam Show. See you tomorrow.